What if I told you that your body was never designed to eat every few hours? Long before supermarkets, delivery apps, and constant snacking, the human organism evolved in an environment where food scarcity was common, not the exception. Survival favored bodies capable of adapting to long periods without eating, activating internal systems that only turn on when food disappears. At a cellular level, fasting is not a malfunction, it is a biological signal. When nutrients stop arriving, your cells do not panic, they reorganize. Metabolism shifts from growth mode to preservation mode, prioritizing repair, efficiency, and survival. This ancient switch is written into your DNA. Anthropological evidence shows that early humans frequently went days without food, relying on stored energy and metabolic flexibility. Those who could not adapt simply did not survive long enough to pass on their genes. What you experience during fasting today is the same mechanism that protected your ancestors thousands of years ago. This is why fasting does not weaken the body by default. When done intentionally, it activates systems that remain dormant in constant feeding. And the most fascinating part is that these changes begin much earlier than most people imagine. If you're interested in understanding how your body really works, beyond myths, trends, and shortcuts, subscribe to the channel now. Every video here is built on real science, human biology, and mechanisms your body has used for thousands of years. And what we're about to explore next will completely change how you see fasting. In the first few hours after your last meal, your body is still operating on external energy. Blood glucose remains stable, insulin stays elevated, and cells continue using incoming nutrients. Nothing dramatic seems to happen on the surface, but internally, a countdown has already begun. Around the 12-hour mark, insulin levels start to decline significantly. This drop is critical because insulin acts as a storage hormone. As it falls, cells receive a clear message: food is no longer available and stored energy must be accessed instead. Liver cells respond first by releasing glycogen, a stored form of glucose. This process keeps blood sugar stable while signaling other tissues to prepare for a metabolic transition. Muscles, fat cells, and even neurons begin adjusting their fuel expectations. At this stage, hunger is often more psychological than biological. Hormones like ghrelin rise in waves, not continuously, which explains why hunger comes and goes. Inside your cells, the real work has just started. As fasting continues, insulin reaches some of its lowest levels. This hormonal environment is essential for fat burning. Low insulin removes the blockade that normally prevents fat cells from releasing stored fatty acids into the bloodstream. Fat tissue begins breaking down triglycerides into free fatty acids and glycerol. These molecules travel to organs like the liver and muscles, where they are converted into usable energy. This transition is slow, controlled, and remarkably efficient. Unlike crash dieting, fasting does not force the body into chaos. Instead, it follows a programmed sequence. Cells prefer glucose when it is abundant, but they smoothly switch to fat-derived fuels when glucose disappears. This is why many people report stable energy during fasting after the initial adjustment. Cells are not starving, they are simply using a different fuel source, one that has been stored specifically for times like this. By roughly 24 hours, liver glycogen stores become largely depleted. This moment represents a true metabolic turning point. The body can no longer rely on stored glucose and must fully commit to alternative energy pathways. The liver increases the conversion of fatty acids into ketone bodies, molecules capable of crossing the blood-brain barrier. This adaptation is vital because the brain requires a constant energy supply, regardless of food intake. Muscle tissue also adapts by reducing glucose consumption and relying more heavily on fatty acids. This shift helps preserve limited glucose for cells that absolutely depend on it, such as red blood cells. This stage marks the end of dependency on frequent meals. From here forward, fasting becomes less about endurance and more about cellular efficiency and internal regulation.
As ketone production increases, the brain begins a remarkable transformation. Although glucose is its preferred fuel, the brain is highly adaptable and can derive a large portion of its energy from ketones when necessary. This shift is not a backup plan, it is a refined survival mechanism. Ketones provide a more stable energy supply than glucose, producing fewer reactive byproducts at the mitochondrial level. This can result in clearer thinking, reduced mental fatigue, and a surprising sense of calm that many people report after the initial fasting phase. Neurons also respond by increasing the expression of genes related to stress resistance and metabolic efficiency. In simple terms, brain cells become better at doing more with less. This is one reason fasting has been studied for its potential neuroprotective effects. What feels like deprivation from the outside is, internally, a coordinated upgrade. The brain is no longer dependent on constant sugar intake and begins operating in a mode shaped by millions of years of human evolution. Between 24 and 48 hours, one of the most important cellular processes in human biology becomes significantly more active: autophagy. This is the system through which cells identify, break down, and recycle damaged components. Proteins that are misfolded, dysfunctional mitochondria, and cellular debris are dismantled and repurposed. Instead of accumulating damage, cells use fasting as an opportunity to renew themselves from the inside. Autophagy is not just about cleanup. It improves cellular communication, enhances metabolic efficiency, and reduces internal stress signals. This process has been associated in scientific literature with longevity and resilience against age-related decline. Importantly, autophagy does not happen at full strength during constant feeding. It requires periods of nutrient absence to activate fully, which is why prolonged fasting uniquely stimulates this deeply restorative mechanism. When digestion pauses, the immune system shifts priorities. A large portion of daily immune activity is normally devoted to managing food-related antigens and gut-related inflammation. Fasting temporarily reduces this burden. Inflammatory markers, such as certain cytokines, tend to decrease during prolonged fasting. This creates an internal environment that favors repair rather than defense. Cells are less reactive and more focused on restoration. The gut itself also benefits from this pause. Intestinal permeability may decrease, and the gut lining has time to regenerate without constant mechanical and chemical stress from food processing. This reduction in inflammation is not suppression, it is recalibration. The immune system becomes more efficient, responding more precisely instead of remaining in a constant low-grade alert state. A common fear surrounding fasting is muscle loss, but the body has built-in mechanisms to minimize this risk. As fasting continues, hormones, such as growth hormone, increase significantly. Growth hormone plays a critical role in preserving lean tissue while promoting fat utilization. It signals muscle cells to resist breakdown and encourages the use of fatty acids and ketones instead. At the same time, the body reduces unnecessary movement and energy expenditure at the cellular level. Muscle protein breakdown slows as the metabolism becomes more conservative and strategic. This hormonal environment demonstrates that fasting is not a state of uncontrolled breakdown. It is a regulated process designed to protect vital tissues while accessing stored energy reserves. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed clearer thinking or reduced inflammation-like symptoms when eating less or skipping meals? Comment what you've personally experienced so far. During prolonged fasting, immune cells undergo a profound functional reset. Without the constant stimulation caused by food intake and metabolic byproducts, immune signaling becomes more selective and efficient. This shift allows the body to redirect resources towards cellular repair rather than continuous low-grade defense. Certain immune cells reduce activity temporarily while others enter a regeneration phase. Old or dysfunctional immune cells are broken down and recycled through autophagy-related pathways. This internal renewal helps optimize immune responses once feeding resumes. Scientific observations show that fasting can reduce immune system noise. Instead of reacting broadly, immune cells become more precise, which may lower the risk of chronic inflammatory signaling. This efficiency is critical for long-term cellular health. Rather than weakening immunity, fasting appears to refine it. The system becomes leaner, more adaptive, and better prepared to respond appropriately when needed. Mitochondria, the energy-producing structures inside cells, are highly sensitive to metabolic stress. During fasting, they're forced to operate under demanding conditions, relying on fat-derived fuels and ketones instead of glucose. This pressure triggers mitochondrial biogenesis and quality control. Damaged or inefficient mitochondria are removed, while healthier ones become more efficient at producing energy with fewer reactive byproducts.
Cells adapt by improving mitochondrial flexibility. They learn to switch fuels smoothly, which enhances overall metabolic resilience. This adaptability is linked to improved endurance and reduced oxidative stress. In essence, fasting acts like targeted training for your cell's energy systems. What does not function well is removed, and what remains becomes stronger and more efficient. By the time fasting reaches approximately 72 hours, the body is fully immersed in survival optimization mode. Ketone levels stabilize, insulin remains low, and cellular repair mechanisms are highly active. Autophagy reaches one of its most significant levels during this phase. Cells prioritize longevity, maintenance, and internal balance over growth. Energy is used with extreme efficiency, and unnecessary processes are temporarily shut down. Hormonal signaling reflects this priority shift. Growth hormone remains elevated, stress resistance pathways are active, and inflammation is tightly regulated. The body is not deteriorating, it is conserving and refining. This stage represents the peak of metabolic adaptation. While not necessary or appropriate for everyone, it demonstrates how deeply the human body can reorganize itself when food is absent. The moment fasting ends, the refeeding phase becomes just as important as the fast itself. Cells are highly sensitive after prolonged fasting, absorbing nutrients more efficiently and responding strongly to hormonal signals. Insulin sensitivity is temporarily enhanced, allowing nutrients to be directed toward repair rather than storage. Proteins support tissue rebuilding, carbohydrates replenish depleted reserves, and fats restore hormonal balance. Cells also retain a form of metabolic memory. The adaptations developed during fasting influence how energy is processed afterward, often improving metabolic flexibility and efficiency for days or even weeks. This is why fasting is not about deprivation, but about contrast. The absence of food teaches cells how to function better when nourishment returns. If this explanation helped you understand what truly happens inside your cells during fasting, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone curious about metabolic health. And tell me in the comments, would you ever consider a prolonged fast, or do you prefer shorter fasting windows?